Well, as I mentioned earlier today, the House Homeland Security Committee held its first impeachment hearing for Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas following a years-long investigation into his failed leadership, which has led to an invasion of our southern border. Well, today's hearing, titled Havoc in the Heartland, How Secretary Mayorkas' Failed Leadership Has Impacted the States, featured testimony from attorneys general from Montana, Oklahoma, and Missouri, who provided a look at the consequences of the border crisis throughout the entire country. Joining me now to discuss this is Congressman Michael Guest, who serves on the House Homeland Security Committee, where he is the vice chairman of the Subcommittee on Border Security and Enforcement. He is also on the House Appropriations Committee and the House Committee on Ethics. He represents the 3rd Congressional District of Mississippi. Congressman Guest, welcome back to the program.
Tony, great to talk to you again.
So let me ask you, did we learn anything new based upon the testimony from the attorneys general today?
You know, what we learned is from listening to the attorney generals is the impact that this crisis has had in every community, not just communities on the southwest border. You had a story on just a few moments ago before you came on the air about the situation in New York where children are having to go to school virtually because their schools are being used to shelter immigrants. This crisis is an unmitigated disaster. It has been caused by the actions of Secretary Mayorkas, and the committee is taking the steps to finally hold him accountable.
What do you make of the Democrats on the committee's comments downplaying the chaos at the southern border? I mean, the numbers don't lie. I mean, this is, I use those words intentionally, this is an invasion of our southern border.
You know, you're exactly right. Looking at just last month's numbers alone, 300,000 immigrants crossed our border illegally. We know Secretary Mayorkas told agents there on the southern border that 85% of those individuals that cross the border are later released into the interior. If you look at numbers from the immigration court backlog last year alone grew by 1 million cases. We now have 3 million immigrants waiting to have their day in court, and many of those court dates have been pushed off now for years. And so this is something that Republicans have tried to address. We tried to address through H.R. 2, our signature legislation that we passed in May. We tried to address through the appropriations process. And every time Republicans offered answers, all we get back from the Democrats is they push back and they offer excuses and they try to blame Republicans for the crisis that they've created.
One of the issues that the state leaders are concerned about is the influx of drugs coming across the border. Was that a subject of the conversation today?
It was. The attorney generals from the various states, Montana, Missouri, and Oklahoma, spoke of the fact that they are seeing an increase in fentanyl, an increase in other illegal substances coming into their state. They talk about the increase in overall overdose deaths that they're seeing, particularly in individuals 18 to 45. They also talk about the financial crisis it's created as they're having to house, to educate, to provide health care for immigrants. And so they talked about how this impacted the criminal justice system, how it impacted the citizens there. And they all said, without a doubt, that there is a crisis. They have rebutted something that Secretary Mayorkas has continued to say time and time again to Congress, is that Secretary Mayorkas maintains the border is secure and that there is not a crisis. Every one of the attorney generals, when asked, said that the border is not secure and that there is a crisis not only on the border, but a crisis in their communities.
So, Congressman Guest, I want to ask you this question. I mean, we're in a very politically polarized environment, and oftentimes people don't look at the facts. You know, they're just saying, well, the Republicans do this, the Democrats do that. It's just tit for tat. It's back and forth. For one of your constituents, and we've got a lot of your constituents listen to and watch our program, do the actions of Secretary Mayorkas rise to the level of impeachment?
I believe that they do, and each member is going to have to make that individual call. And if you listen today to much of the hearing, you'll see that really none of the Democrats were defending Secretary Mayorkas, defending the job that he had done or the lack thereof. They were instead attacking the process. But I believe, from looking at some of the constitutional law and being able to read some of the materials provided, that there are clear violations, and that we, as the Committee on Homeland Security, we have the ability, if a majority of our members find so, to return articles of impeachment against Secretary Mayorkas. And I think most people who will look at the job that he's done will say that he must be held accountable. To allow him to continue to destroy this country with no accountability, I think is wrong. And I think the public is demanding, both Republicans and Democrats, that something be done.
So, I mean, it really rises to the level of duty. That Congress has a duty. This is one of the responsibilities you have, and that is the oversight of these agencies. And no one, as you just said, the Democrats on the committee weren't even trying to argue that he's doing his job. It's quite clear that he's not.
You're exactly right. Whether he's just incompetent or whether he is intentionally not performing the duties that he has been appointed to oversee, I don't know the answer to that. But I know if you look at federal law, the INA, the Secure Fences Act, he has refused to comply with the law that Congress has written. You just look at the fact that he refused and stopped wall construction day one once he became secretary. A wall that Congress had approved, a wall that Congress had authorized, a wall where wall materials were there on the border waiting to be constructed, and he unilaterally just said, "I'm not going to do what Congress has authorized and told me to do." And so clearly, I think he has overstepped his authority.
I mean, that doesn't work that way. There's the law. You're supposed to operate according to the law. What are the next steps, Congressman? What can we expect to see after today's hearing?
2 more additional hearings that will be coming between now and the end of the month. One will involve the victims whose family members have been harmed or in some cases killed at the hands of illegal aliens who were in the country. And then we're going to invite Secretary Mayorkas to come before our committee and to answer tough questions and to explain to the American people why he should not be held accountable for his actions.
So what these hearings are laying out what you have uncovered in the last year as a committee, letting the American public see it.
That's exactly right, and will most likely end with articles of impeachment being brought forth against Secretary Mayorkas. But we've got to work through that process. There must be due process, and this is part of the due process that Secretary Mayorkas and really any other cabinet secretary would be owed before articles of impeachment are brought forward from the committee.
All right, Congressman Michael Guest, always great to see you. Thanks so much for taking time to join us today.
Thank you again for letting me be on tonight.